Welcome to this video. I am Dylan De Silva. I am a business broker and a real estate agent for tourism properties. One of the questions I get asked most of the time is that, look, if I'm selling my Airbnb property, can I get more money for that Airbnb revenue element? Let me repeat that question. If you are selling a property which has Airbnb, can you get more money for that Airbnb element? The answer is yes, definitely. Watch till the end of this video and I'll explain 3 moving parts that you need to consider if you want more money for your Airbnb property than when you sell it as a regular property. In comparison to a regular residential property, your Airbnb property deserves more money because there is a business which is run using that property. Therefore, in order for you to get that extra share of money for your business element, you need to treat this sale as a business sale. Now, let's forget about the GST or the tax on top of it. That is not relevant for this. For that, you need to talk to your accountant. But if you use these 3 tips I'm about to share, that will bring you more money. During the video, I'm going to show some properties I have sold which had Airbnb elements, and they have always sold for top dollar, or I have managed to get them more money for that business element. So without any further ado, let's get right into it. There's 3 tips. Now here's tip number 1. You need to treat it as a business. In order to treat it as a business, you need to have documentation, business details, revenue records, profit and losses. These need to be there. You need to get your ducks in a row before you list this Airbnb property. You need to talk to your accountant and get a profit and loss for your Airbnb element of the business. Now, even if you don't work that through the accountant, you need to have some records of it. So here's what you need to have. The first thing is your top line, your revenue. So where does the revenue come from? Which is obviously the Airbnb element. Then comes cost. If you're doing it yourself, you don't need to put a charge to it. But if you're using external housekeeping to do that job, external cleaners to do that job, you need to put a charge to it. You'll have your garden maintenance cost if you're using an external person to do that. You have your utilities. It could be a share of utilities, or it could be the whole utilities. It could be the rates and insurance. We call them costs of sales. These costs are incurred because of the sale, or for you to service that sale. In addition to that, you need to make sure that you add the Airbnb commissions or the sales commissions into that cost. Identifying the net profit clearly is really important so that you can value your business correctly, and we will talk that in point number 3. But for the moment, you need to have your net profit identified, whether it's done through an accountant or whether it's done by yourself. The second moving part in point number 1 is that you need to identify the revenue streams. You would have got your revenue from Airbnb. Airbnb have certain reports which you can download or which you can ask them to give you copies of. For an example, some Airbnb units would have good weekend occupancy, some would have good weekday occupancy. So you need to have those statistics so that you can show potential purchasers this is how you developed your business, or this is the moving parts of your revenue. The second most important point is you need to identify a broker you're going to use, a suitable business broker you're going to use to sell this Airbnb property. If you list it with a straightforward residential broker, the chances are that you will not get that money on top of your normal house value. So unless they have that experience of selling Airbnb properties before and getting that top dollar for you. I mean, think of it this way. You can't use a car salesman to sell an aircraft. You need to use an aircraft salesman. So this is a specialized job. We specialize tourism brokers, and we are in Australia and New Zealand. So look at our details below. You'll be able to find our contact details and contact us to see whether there's a local broker who services your area. However, make sure you pick the right broker so that you can get that value. A broker who you pick needs to understand that special tourism element. Point number 3, there's a bit to explain here. How do you value your Airbnb business? So here are some steps. Number 1, you need to get a CMA, or a competitive market analysis. A CMA will include details such as what are the competitive properties which sold in the area, what are similar properties that sold in your particular area, how much money did they get above the government valuation. But it will not give you a comparison of Airbnb revenue, because Not all properties you compare have that Airbnb element. And in other words, you really can't compare commercial properties because there is not much available, not much data available to gather and share. That's the reason you need to have a broker who's specialized in that area, who will understand the numbers and how to use those multipliers. Once you identify what your property is worth without the Airbnb element, we add the Airbnb element on top. So this is how you calculate the Airbnb element. You use a 2 or 3 time multiplier. So that is, you take your net profit, say it's $25,000 or $50,000, you multiply it by 2 or 3. Now, how do you make the judgment whether you multiply it by 2 or whether you multiply it by 3? There are certain things you need to consider before you choose whether you're going to use a 2 time or a 3 time multiplier. There are certain pluses and minuses. For an example, is your property a CBD property? Is your property close to the beach, or has it got a waterfront, etc., etc.? What are the number of forward bookings? So there are many moving parts for you to consider whether you can use a 2 time multiplier or a 3 time multiplier. This is an industry standard which you can use. I share content in relation to tourism properties and real estate, and those content could be of value to you, so keep an eye for these videos. Signing off, I'm Dylan De Silva from Tourism Properties. If you have any more comments of how you can improve the value of your Airbnb business, or how you can get more money when you decide to sell your Airbnb business, please make some comments down here so that we can share our information. And if you have any questions, or if you want me to do videos on particular subjects, just make some comments and I'll be happy to do them for you. Signing off, Dylan De Silva, a business broker and a real estate agent for Tourism Properties. Thanks again.